Storytime Productions.
Here's a 3-pack of some creepy 3-footers. Watch to the end, important info for you. Enjoy.
Story 1.
In the quiet suburban town of Crestwood, nestled among tree-lined streets and friendly neighbors, lived the Anderson family. Mark, a hard-working father, Lisa, a loving mother, and their 10-year-old son, Jake. Life was ordinary until an unexpected package arrived on their doorstep one gloomy afternoon.
Did you order something?
The box was plain, with no return address. Mark brought it inside, thinking it might be a belated birthday gift for Jake. As they gathered around the living room, Jake tore open the box to reveal a My Buddy doll, a nostalgic relic from the 80s. Its plastic eyes stared lifelessly, and a stitched smile adorned its face. The accompanying note simply read, "For Jake, love, Grandma." The problem was, Grandma had passed away 3 years ago. The family dismissed the strange occurrence, chalking it up to a distant relative with a peculiar sense of humor. Little did they know that the doll held a secret of its own, one that would unleash a night of terror upon the unsuspecting household. That night, as the clock struck midnight, a soft rustling echoed through the darkness. Jake awoke to a strange sensation, the sensation of being watched. He turned on his bedside lamp, and to his horror, the My Buddy doll was sitting at the foot of his bed, its plastic eyes now gleaming with an unnatural light. "Hey Jake, let's play," the doll whispered in a voice that sent shivers down the young boy's spine. Frozen in fear, Jake watched as the doll's stitched smile widened into a malevolent grin. Suddenly, it lunged at him, its tiny plastic hands wrapping around his throat. Jake gasped for air as he struggled against the supernatural force. His desperate cries went unheard as the doll tightened its grip. Down the hall, Mark and Lisa were jolted awake by their son's agonized screams. Rushing to his room, they found Jake thrashing on the bed, the My Buddy doll strangling him. Without hesitation, Mark grabbed the doll and threw it across the room. It crashed against the wall, momentarily motionless, but to their horror, the doll slowly rose to its feet, its plastic limbs creaking eerily.
We have to get rid of it.
We have to get rid of it, Mark exclaimed, his voice strained with panic. But no matter how hard they tried, the doll seemed indestructible. It withstood fire, drowning, and even a crushing blow from a hammer. Each time they thought they had finally defeated it, the doll would reappear, unscathed and more malevolent than ever. As the night wore on, the Andersons found themselves in a desperate battle for survival. The My Buddy doll, seemingly possessed by an evil force, relentlessly pursued them through the house. It taunted them with whispers in the dark, playing on their deepest fears. In a final, desperate attempt to escape, the family barricaded themselves in the basement. Trembling in the dim light, they huddled together, haunted by the malevolent laughter echoing through the house. Just when they thought all hope was lost, a mysterious figure appeared in the basement doorway. It was Grandma, or at least, it looked like her. She wore a serene expression, her eyes filled with an otherworldly wisdom. "Jake, my dear, it's time to let go," she said, her voice soothing. Confused and terrified, the family watched as Grandma approached the My Buddy doll. With a gentle touch, she whispered words of comfort, and to their amazement, the doll's malevolence seemed to fade away. As Grandma embraced the doll, a blinding light enveloped them. The basement walls seemed to dissolve, revealing a surreal landscape of swirling colors. In the blink of an eye, the Andersons found themselves standing in their living room, the My Buddy doll now lifeless on the floor. Grandma's figure faded away, leaving only a lingering sense of peace. The doll, once a harbinger of horror, now resembled the harmless toy it was meant to be. The family, bewildered but grateful, held each other close. As dawn broke, the Andersons surveyed the remnants of their harrowing night. The My Buddy doll lay still on the living room floor, its plastic eyes devoid of the malevolent spark that had haunted them. The town of Crestwood returned to its ordinary self, blissfully unaware of the supernatural events that had transpired. In the days that followed, the Andersons struggled to make sense of the inexplicable. Grandma's unexpected visit and the strange transformation of the doll left them with more questions than answers. They chose to keep the doll, a silent reminder of the supernatural forces that had tested their bonds and, ultimately, brought them closer together. Little did they know that, in the hidden corners of the basement, a small stitched smile graced the face of the My Buddy doll. Though it appeared lifeless, a glint of mischievousness lingered in its plastic eyes. The surprise ending was not the end at all. The malevolent force may have retreated for now, but the darkness still lurked, patiently biding its time for another opportunity to strike.
Story 2.
Once upon a time in a quiet suburban neighborhood stood a picturesque family home. It was a beautiful two-story house with a white picket fence, blooming flower beds, and an inviting front porch. The Anderson family had just moved in, unaware of the sinister secret that lurked within the walls. The first night was peaceful. The family, consisting of John, Sarah, and their 2 young children, settled into their new home with excitement and anticipation. But as the night fell deeper, strange noises echoed throughout the house. At first, the sounds were dismissed as settling noises, the house adjusting to its new occupants. However, as time passed, the noises became more frequent, unsettling, and impossible to ignore. Unseen entities seemed to be scratching at the walls, whispering in guttural tones that sent shivers down the family's spines. As the days turned into weeks, the Andersons' once cheerful demeanor transformed into anxiety and fear. John became increasingly exhausted, blaming it on the mysterious disturbances that kept him up at night. Sarah's once bright eyes dimmed with worry as she tried to protect her children from the invisible threats that haunted their abode. One evening, unable to bear the torment any longer, John decided to investigate the source of these eerie sounds. Armed with a flashlight and a determined spirit, he ventured into the darkest corners of the house. Crouching in the attic, John discovered an ancient moldy tomb. The tattered pages spoke of ancient creatures known as trolls, malevolent beings that fed on human fear and suffering. According to the writings, they were attracted to new homes, drawn to the emotions of the unsuspecting residents. The horrifying truth sent chills down John's spine. His greatest fear was realized. Trolls lurked within the very walls that surrounded them. These malevolent creatures reveled in the fear they instilled, growing stronger with each terrified breath. Determined to save his family, John sought the help of a wise old woman known for her knowledge of the supernatural. Maggie, a renowned paranormal expert, listened carefully to his account and agreed to help. Armed with protective runes and ancient rituals, she set out to banish the trolls from the Anderson home. Under Maggie's guidance, the family formed a circle in their living room, clasping hands tightly. Words of protection were chanted, scattering the trolls within the walls into disarray. A gust of wind roared through the house, a cacophony of wails and screeches piercing the air. Suddenly, silence enveloped the home. The presence of the trolls had vanished, replaced by a newfound tranquility. The Andersons heaved a sigh of relief, grateful for their salvation. Years later, the Anderson family often looked back on their encounter with the trolls as a haunting memory. The house, once filled with sweat-inducing terror, transformed into a sanctuary of peace and warmth. Though the idea of unseen creatures lingering in the walls sent shivers down their spines, they found solace in knowing they had triumphed over darkness. And so the Anderson family's home stood as a testament to their strength and resilience. It became a reminder that sometimes, to conquer the most terrifying monsters, one must confront the darkness head-on, banishing fear to the deepest realms of imagination.
Story 3.
In the quiet town of Stonebrook, nestled deep within the forest, there was an eerie tale that had been whispered through generations. The legends spoke of malevolent creatures called gnomes, small in stature but vast in their sinister powers. It was said that once the sun dipped below the horizon, these creatures would emerge from their hidden burrows, ready to wreak havoc upon the unsuspecting villagers. The first signs of their presence came as whispered secrets, traded furtively among the townsfolk. Tales of mysteriously missing pets and unkempt gardens sent shivers down the spines of those who dared to listen. Residents would wake from troubled dreams to find footprints, no bigger than a child's hand, leading to their front doors. There was an unmistakable feeling of being watched. Morgan, a curious and intrepid teenager, was no stranger to the stories that plagued her town. While others dismissed them as mere superstitions, she knew there was something darker lurking beneath the surface. Determined to uncover the truth, she armed herself with a flashlight, a camera, and a notebook, and ventured into the forest on a moonless night. As she ventured deeper into the woods, the familiar sounds of chirping nocturnal creatures fell silent. The air grew still, heavy with an unexplainable tension. Shadows seemed to dance and twist, taking on grotesque forms that taunted her presence. Morgan swallowed her fear and pressed on, her footsteps muffled by the damp forest floor. Hours passed, and Morgan's heart raced as she stumbled upon a clearing bathed in an eerie glow. Golden orbs flickered in the darkness, eyes piercing the veil of secrecy. She could just make out the twisted figures in the distance, cracked smiles stretching across their grotesque faces. These were the creatures her town had feared for centuries, the gnomes. The gnomes, no larger than a foot tall, moved with unnerving agility and malevolence. Their jagged teeth gnashed, their twisted limbs seemed to defy logic, and their eyes glinted with an otherworldly malice. Morgan's gut churned with a mix of terror and curiosity as she watched them carry out their nocturnal rituals. They chanted in a whispered language that seemed to twist itself into ethereal tendrils, weaving through the air. Strange markings adorned the clearing's perimeter, casting an ominous glow that pulsed with an unholy energy. Morgan hid behind a gnarled tree, her hands trembling, desperate to uncover the truth that lay at their sinister core. Through her camera's lens, Morgan captured glimpses of unspeakable horrors. The gnomes feasted on stolen innocence, ripping into flesh with bony fingers, their eyes glowing with twisted satisfaction. The villagers who had vanished without a trace had become nothing more than sustenance for these malevolent creatures of the night. The gnomes seemed to sense Morgan's presence, their malicious grins turning towards her hiding spot. Panic surged through her veins, her survival instinct urging her to flee. However, something within her resisted. She couldn't let these horrors go unnoticed. She had a duty to warn her townsfolk of the darkness that lurked beneath their idyllic lives. Summoning every ounce of courage, Morgan broke free from her hiding spot and sprinted through the clearing, her camera capturing the chaos that unfolded. The gnomes howled with a mix of anger and fear, their unearthly shrieks echoing through the forest as they gave chase. Morgan ran faster than she ever had before, her fear fueling her every stride. Finally reaching the town, Morgan stumbled into the center square, panting and exhausted. The townsfolk gathered around, their faces reflecting a mix of concern and disbelief. Morgan held up the camera, showing them the undeniable horrors she had discovered lurking in the woods. Gnomes, creatures of darkness that had plagued their town for far too long. The village erupted in a mixture of disbelief, terror, and anger. Armed with pitchforks and torches, the townspeople rallied together, determined to purge their town of the malevolent creatures that had haunted them for centuries. A battle between humanity and the supernatural ensued, fierce, bloody, and desperate. The sound of screams, both human and gnome, pierced the night as the ferocious villagers fought back against their tormentors. The gnarled trees bore witness to the ancient struggle, their twisted branches reaching out as if to join the fray. When the sun finally rose, the battle had subsided, leaving behind a harrowing scene of destruction. Stonebrook, forever scarred by its encounter with the gnomes, slowly began to rebuild. The legends and tales that once haunted the town's dreams now served as a reminder of the horrors they had endured. And Morgan, forever changed by her nightmarish encounter, stood as a testament to the courage and resilience of a young girl who dared to face the darkness head-on. I think I used to have a My Buddy doll as a kid. Yeah, I used to slam it around with wrestling moves, body slams and suplexes, maybe some DDTs. Hope it doesn't come back for me. Subscribe if you have not already. Body slam the like button for me, it's much appreciated, and share anywhere and everywhere so I can get my content to all the horror fans out there. And as always, my friends, I will see you on the dark side. Sweet nightmares.